Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Fit RX. I am your host, Dr. Greg Dennis. Today, I am talking with Dr. Mark Sherwood. He is a doctor of naturopathic medicine. Um, got a long list of fitness accolades, former bodybuilder, a professional baseball player. He is also a veteran of the Tulsa Police Department. And he is married to Dr. Michele-Neil Sherwood, who is an osteopathic physician who graduated from Oklahoma State University. She's a board certified internal medicine doctor, as well as board certified sports medicine. And she also has a long list of fitness accolades under her belt as well. And together they run the Functional Medicine Institute in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So excited to just hear about what they do. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Man, Greg, thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be with you today. So thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Well, let's start. I always like just kind of getting to know the guests a little bit, and so talk about just kind of your evolution in fitness and just how you got into this space, and then we can talk more specifically about what you and your wife do at the clinic.
It has been quite a journey, to say the least. Probably I would begin with, you know, being fairly athletic, college professional, of course, and have some success there, and getting into the police department, and being part of the SWAT team, and having to maintain some sort of a physical condition, if you will, its physical shape. But my last several years on the police department, I was put in charge of a wellness program that didn't exist. So I went exploring that subject matter around to various police departments around the country. And I found it was sorely lacking. And Greg, this statistic stuck in me deeply when I discovered it, that the average age of death of the 20-year male retired police officer was 66 years of age. And that was prevalent around the country probably 50 years ago, and it maintained that same level for the next 40 years. And so I thought there's got to be something better than this. So, I did my very best to initiate some good strategies to put in place to mitigate that and sort of extend life past retirement, if you will. But that got me into the journey, the exploration of what does life and lifestyle and what does that mean to longevity. So went back to school, despite all my colleagues saying I was an idiot, you're too old. And so I went back to school to learn. And since then, it's been a whole world of just wonderment and awe and why and asking questions. So my wife, as you mentioned, Dr. Michelle, and I now get to explore that question better. So we've really been keen on determining how do we decelerate this rapidly aging process we have, and perhaps best said, extend this thing called health span. So that's our mission. We do it ourselves, and we teach other people to do that as well.
Awesome. Okay. So your wife isn't able to join us today, but tell us a little bit about her background and then how she got over into this space. And I'm sure that's probably where you two collided. And then maybe we can go from there and talk about, what y'all do at the Functional Medicine Institute.
It is. My wife, Dr. Michele-Neil Sherwood, is my best friend. She's my partner. She's my love, of course, and that's the cool thing about it. We get to work together and love that. But her journey has a lot of tragedy attached to it. She was the hopeful Olympian for the Taekwondo spectator sport back in those days, and was ranked seventh in the nation, was going along well, and then suffered a triple triad to the left knee. And unfortunately, that ended her career. And she took up, massage therapy, and she rehabbed her knee without surgery. This will blow people's minds. She did it with duct tape. No kidding. She just taped it up and let it try to heal itself. And she started lifting and training and was very successful in the physique industry and wellness industry, as I was. Eventually, a massage client of hers noticed her studying continually the anatomy books, et cetera, medical books, and gave her a head start by paying for her first semester of junior college. And at the time, believe it or not, my wife was homeless, living in her car, just trying to make ends meet. And what a comeback story, because that led to a cascade of events of scholarship after scholarship and finally graduating with honors at Oklahoma State. She did actually pass her DO board and went ahead and passed the MD board exam just to see if she could. I thought that was pretty fascinating. But interestingly enough, with her, she got into the system as an internist into one of the well-known systems here in our area, and people started getting well. She was doing functional medicine, functional healing, and people weren't returning for follow-up visits. And so she was terminated from her contract unceremoniously and basically kicked out, went into the spin of depression. And then we met during that time when perhaps that's the way, our good Lord intended it, to me to come into her life at a time where she needed me and I needed her, and wanted her and she wanted me. And we started the Functional Medical Institute. And even her story, believe it or not, as I was telling you before we came on live, has been made into a full screen movie called The Prayer List, which will be released worldwide here anytime this time period of 2021 in the late spring. And it goes to theaters, television, then Target, Walmart, et cetera, in that order. And it's a fascinating story of a lady who overcomes and how is now able to be a beacon of hope to people. So that's kind of what we call ourselves, hope dealers. And so now we get the opportunity together through Functional Medical Institute that is in Tulsa to serve probably 8,000 people around the world. It's a very large operation, and we are really blessed to have practitioners like yourself as friends and colleagues that can work with us, and we can share this message of hope for everybody.
Wow, that's incredible. I can't wait to see the movie. Well, let me go back to her. So it sounds like she started practicing functional medicine fairly early in her career. Where was she introduced to this?
Yeah, so she actually got her naturopathic degree before she got her
Okay.
osteopathy degree, which is
Okay.
interesting. So she had that background, and she was certified in acupuncture, a lot of the Chinese medicine modalities. So she kind of went in with the idea to be a healer, to learn, and it just seemed like a natural process to add the ability to prescribe medicine. We're not anti-medicine at all. We're,
Sure.
we're
Yeah.
pro-medicine, of course, and used in proper ways. But what happened was, as she got in the system and was, I think I can say this word confidently, was disillusioned
Mm.
by, oh my goodness, what have we done here? And truly, I mean, and this is not knocking anybody at all, Greg, this is true. A person like her and a person like me and a person like you, it creates a sort of discomfort in people's world that don't really do that. So there's like a wedge that's driven there. And so, you can see from a business system model why she wouldn't fit. And you can see from this business system thing from her why it wouldn't work either. So, medicine, as we know now, is a for-profit, protocol-driven system. We're not anti-acute care. We just really believe, and I'll say it, that the system now is extremely poor
Mm.
extremely poor at representing anything called health and preventive measures. And we've seen that occur, referencing the pandemic that is. We can't sort of dismiss that. I mean, no one's talking about the concept that, many studies have confirmed that just having a vitamin D level over 30 lowers the percentage of hospitalizations for COVID-19 to 4% or less. Why weren't we given vitamin D at the beginning? It just sounds so simple, but that didn't fit the protocol. Instead, we go down the ventilators and the corticosteroids and everything else. But the point is that system is not set up for wellness at all. It's set up for sickness, and that's why what we are doing and you're doing is so critical to give people. I think that this is primary, and I think that's secondary or perhaps tertiary to primary, which is primarily keeping people well.
Yeah, that's great. I couldn't agree more. And that's really cool that she went in with that background and kind of with that mindset, to where she probably, kind of questioned the standard from the get-go, where people like myself, I didn't really have that kind of background, and I did what most physicians do. They just take what's given to us, and we say this is the way it's done, and we
Yeah.
don't question that. And I did that. People have heard me say this time and time again on my podcast, but I did the standard of care for many years.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until one day I just kind of had this epiphany, and I was like, okay, people aren't getting better. I mean, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do, that they tell me to do, and they may even look better on paper, but the patients were not getting better. And
Mhm.
that's when I kind of took a deep dive several years ago and just started changing the way that I practice. But there are some other physicians like me that do that. They just kind of
Mhm.
have that moment, and they realize that, look, this standard of care, the way we treat chronic conditions,
Mhm.
doesn't work very well. But there's not very many. I mean, and so, and it's actually one of the reasons I started this podcast. I just want to kind of get my message out there that, hey, there's a better way. But that's really cool that she, kind of already had that background, and I sure wish I would have had that going in, so I could have questioned
Mhm.
it from the get-go, rather than practice, as I did for, I don't know, over a decade, and then kind of had that realization. So
Mhm. Well, I think that's great because a lot of people, such as yourself, you go into it for the right intent, the right motives, the right heart. I mean, it's all great, but then you understand that the system is about a profitability, and
yeah,
it's about payer mixes, it's about seeing people, it's about referrals. And for some reason, I just think, and this is not knocking any person, I just think we've fallen into a trap, perhaps, and we become protocol driven and profit driven instead of personal experience, personal lives driven. And it's hard, as you know, to step out of that. Some people, in my wife's case, was forced out of that, but it's hard to step out of it. We have a lot of physicians that come to us, and they're crying literally for help, physically and literally, but they can't get out because your lifestyle's attached there. And what are you supposed to do? You're gonna go out here and lose your salary, yes, and then you're going to start all over. And you hopefully have some good patients that follow you, and then you transition models from maybe insurance toward cash, and there's all of those discussions that people have, and it's a challenge. But i
yeah,
i appreciate what you're saying, because people just need a push, they need a boost, they need some hope. And if you can give them a hope, like, man, I did this too, you can, it's
hmm,
great. That sometimes is what people need. So the synergy with which you have in the FitRx podcast is great, to bring just a fresh perspective. So I really appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. Well, good deal. So you guys got together,
Mhm.
and it sounded like only natural. Y'all kind of have your own clinic, and so you started the Functional Medicine Institute. When did you start that? How long y'all
We
been?
started that about it's been about 9 years ago now, I guess, in that
Okay.
nature. And it was funny. We started out just well, she actually started it just ahead of me, and then I kind of joined her in that because we didn't know how awkward that would be or weird, right? So she started it, and it was just her in a little corner office answering her own phone calls, and then I came on board, and we just kind of teamed up with it, and it just kept going and going and going. And it's been amazing because we've learned a few powerful truths. And one is this, that money and abundance and provision follows truth. If truth leads, everything else follows. And number two, there's powerful synergy and powerful influence in relationships. Sometimes people come and all they want to do is get heard. They want to make sure you heard them. And if you give a good history, experience for them, just letting them tell their story, and then rephrase it back to them, that there in itself creates a dynamic of healing for someone because it's the first time perhaps in a while they've been heard. And as compared to a person in a system, and it again, we very careful, I'm not knocking any person, it's
No,
not
I
the
get it.
point.
Yep.
It's like someone is stuck and they're being pushed to see 40 people a day, where we might see on a big day 8, but somebody might get an hour over time. And I think there's just power in the relationship. So those two principles have really driven us, and we've continued to learn, unlearn some things, learn some new things again, and it's been great. But we're always trying to do better.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's encouraging to hear too. So, my wife is also a physician, and so she left corporate medicine about a year and a half ago, and she started a cash-based practice, something called
Yeah.
direct primary care, which is a
Mhm.
monthly membership fee. And then
Yeah.
we do a lot of things kind of above and beyond what most direct primary care doctors do, such as hormone replacement and
Yeah.
things like that. And then I just started February 1st. So I left corporate medicine, and so it was a huge jump. And so anyway, it's encouraging to talk to people like you and to see the success that you guys have had.
Mhm.
I absolutely love the style of practice. Now it just needs to grow, but the fact that I
Mhm.
can now spend an hour with somebody,
Yeah.
and it takes time to get people well, and when you're in the system and you're just spinning on your wheels, and you have 5 minutes to spend with
Mhm.
somebody, it's difficult. But anyway,
Yes.
yeah, it's encouraging to hear you guys' success.
Mhm.
So
Well, I think without question, any physician that's listening to this podcast right now needs to have a belief level and a hope level that's high, because there's no way we're going to have enough to meet the need if people don't step out and do it. I mean, that's such an opportunity right now, such a wonderful time in history right now to be really what we're all called to be an agent of healing. So it's the time now, and obviously taking that first step is the most difficult, but after you start to seeing lives get healed, that is the driving force that keeps one going, right?
for sure, yeah. I mean, the more I learn about all this, the more I realize that I really wasn't a fit for corporate medicine anymore. And many people have heard me say on this podcast that in the last few years, it really kind of rejuvenated my career,
Mhm.
because I realized I can actually make people better. I mean, I wasn't making
Yeah.
people better just throwing medications at them, and
Mhm.
just like you said, I mean, I'm not anti-medication, um, but now I've realized I can actually reverse disease.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, it's really just kind of rejuvenated my career, and
Mhm.
now I'm excited to go to work and excited to talk to people. So anyway, it's a cool thing. So tell me, because I don't think I have even done this on my podcast yet, but define for us what is functional medicine.
So I think there's probably two different definitions that people need to be aware of. And this is just a personal experience opinion after all this time doing it. I don't I'm not a fan of the term functional medicine as much as I was. I like functional healing. I think that's a little bit better. Well, functional medicine is really an approach that is defined as, instead of looking for just symptoms of disease that we would treat from a pharmacological modality, if somebody has pain, let's turn off the pain, et cetera. That's an example. Functional medicine sort of goes upstream and looks for the whys. Why do they have pain? And I use this analogy a lot, and I think it'll be a very good picture for both clinicians and non-clinicians listening. As a dam that it has a river below it, and then above the dam is the reservoir. But the river would represent life. And as the river comes up, perhaps a little bit too high, flooding into someone's house, we would throw a sandbag at it. Sandbag's not bad because it would hold the water at bay a little bit, but if the water came up higher, we would throw another sandbag. That would be a picture of traditional symptomatology, diagnostic oriented medicine processes and procedures. Functional medicine does not dismiss that, but functional medicine adds to that in the sense that goes back upstream and it answers the question, well, why is the water coming up? And why is the dam, in this analogy, in our perception and definition, the dam would be like our genetics, our individual unique characteristics, and the way we process the reservoir coming in from upstream. So the upstream things would be things such as lifestyle. Some we control, some we don't, but it's how the body processes that epigenetic response or that epigenetic conversation and then lets out the water, and we would call that genetic response. And in that analogy, functional medicine goes as far upstream as possible to determine the whys, thereby correcting the whys, thereby eliminating the symptoms, therefore making diseases not a relevant topic anymore because we're eliminating the cause of disease, right? And so that analogy is pretty clear. And so we like to consider ourselves as functional healers. So in one respect, what we don't want to do with functional medicine, Greg, is simply just switch out the idea of what I just said of downstream water coming up medicine to water coming up supplement. I see that a lot. And I tell the clinicians, don't do that. It might be safer, it might be better, but that's exchanging pharmacy for polypharmacy or pharmacy for green pharmacy. So if you, and that's even switching out the conventional testing to really cool diagnostic functional oriented tests, we've got to really still answer the question, why is this happening? And that's not just done with testing, that's done with the relationship that you're talking about. So, I think that is a good way to look at both definitions and sort of merge them together, and then explains our preference to sort of consider it functional healing.
Okay. Okay. Well, very good. So I'd like to get into maybe a little bit about what y'all do there.
Mhm.
So you kind of define functional medicine or functional healing. So walk us through. So a patient comes in, and I was just looking on your website, a lot of the services you have, and you have something called Prime Lifestyle Program.
Mhm.
So just kind of talk about what that is, and again, if a patient comes in, just walk us through what a patient is going to experience coming to your clinic.
Right. So with Prime Lifestyle Program, we just consider Prime Lifestyle's best lifestyle, the best life for the individual person. Somebody could, make any, you could call it primo lifestyle or optimum lifestyle, whatever, but that's just a term we use. There are 7 pillars to what we focus on, and those pillars would be as follows: nutrition, sleep, stress management, movement, genetics. We do a lot of bioidentical hormones, and we do peptides. So those 7 things we're going to optimize with everyone. So when someone comes in, the ideal client or community person is really anyone that says, I want my best life. You don't have to be sick. You could be having some kind of diseases, but I want my best life. And we're going to use those 7 pillars and optimize those 7 pillars so that as you mentioned earlier, any disease process that may be happening, we can resolve those as soon as possible, as much as possible, and even perhaps see deprescription of medications that are unnecessary rather than just continuing to perpetuate that. So, we really look at it from that individual purposes. So a Prime Lifestyle, we develop plans that are specific, personalized, individualized based upon the person sitting in front of us. So we like to have people in the idea, it's much like the model that your wife is doing, where there's a kind of subscription base, but ours is kind of a unique situation. It's not a subscription base as much as it is a plan. So we structure a plan for the person based upon where they are, how they are, what they are, their desire, their want tos, their readiness, etc., abilities too. And we structure that plan, and we get them into a term, and we execute that plan a step-by-step basis. And many times, with that said, it'll resort in them having, sort of this concept of a monthly payment, but really it's kind of paying for the plan as you go.
Gotcha. So who kind of seeks you out? Is it more people that are pretty sick, maybe that are on a lot of medicines, and they um, are just kind of tired of the traditional kind of medical system,
Mhm.
or are they people that are maybe already pretty healthy and they want to optimize their health
Mhm.
with peptides or hormones or whatever, or a little bit of everything? Who's a typical patient that you guys see?
I think it's probably more the person who has experienced being at the end of the rope. I've tried everything, and here I am. So that's the kind of person. They tend to fit, kind of our age group. We're upper 50s now, and yeah, I believe it. Really, kind of said that, made me go, wow. But that group is, the 35 to 65 group that just really is a little frustrated. We get a lot of that, but in that group, you get both of those concepts of who you just mentioned. You get the person who's generally pretty healthy but wants to age well, and within that group you get people that are start experiencing breakdown in their metabolic issues, their resiliency, both immunologically and even endocrinology wise. And so we get that group. I think that probably represents, 85%. And then we get a small group, believe it or not, of these real high level athletes that are, college professional that will come in and just really want to tweak out and optimize all performance metrics in their sport.
Gotcha. So everybody that comes in, I noticed that y'all do DNA testing
Mhm.
for fitness and nutrition and stuff. So uh, does everyone get that comes in, or is that just an option? How does that work?
We like to, because genetics for us are not about looking at things that are wrong. We think the genes are outstanding. We look at them like the standpoint of, I want to know where to look, where vulnerabilities may be. And back to the analogy I used earlier, the dam analogy, everybody's dam, I call them the dam genes. Everybody's dam works a little bit differently in the way it sort of interacts with the environment. And as we would all know, the terms like lipid metabolism, methylation, inflammation, detoxification, oxidative stress, insulin sensitivity, these are all different for people. That's why one size doesn't fit all. So, people want to find out how to, optimize exercise, optimize fat loss, optimize muscle retention. That is all in what I call actionable genes. So we can look at the whole genome, which, okay, gives you some information, i.e. the 23andMe concept, or you can pull out the genes that have the SNPs that have actionable metrics behind them, and those are going to be prevalent. They're going to be well researched, peer reviewed, using people, not rats or animals, etc. And you're able to change the expression of the genes. So we have a hand-picked segment of these single nucleotide polymorphism segments, and we run. There's probably 150 of those things that we go through that we found relevant. Um, Everyone's probably heard of the MTHFR. Well, it's not just that. We look at 4 or 5 that are around there, because that's an element that is over translated in the functional medicine realm and understood in the functional medicine realm. So that's just one example. So genes give us sort of this metric of clue to determine where we might want to go, what we want to look at as far as the water coming up downstream and flooding the house in our analogy.
So if I'm a patient and I'm hearing all that, I'm going to say, yeah, all that sounds really cool, but it sounds really expensive.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Does insurance ever pay for any of that, or how does that work?
Great question, because insurance needs to be looked at in a different way. We all need insurance, but let's don't call it health insurance, because that's not what it is. It's sick insurance. And sick insurance is to take care of us if we have an accident or something happens that we don't expect. I have it, we have it, it's good. Now, insurance can be used in certain situations, and we've kind of figured it out in some serum blood work, right? If we can use insurance, we will. But we also know what insurance bills, or the labs bill the insurance company in the same realm. So we would take a lab and we negotiate with the lab. We do this hardcore negotiation cash. What does it cost me, Dr. Dennis, to do this lab? What does that cost? What comes out of my pocket? What's my hard cost? That's very important to understand for any clinician going into this space. You need to know that concept of hard costs. If you don't, you're missing it right there. So we give that. And then we also know exactly what that lab is going to bill an insurance company. And let's just use an example. Let's say a lab cost $300 cash, right? And let's say we know that lab costs the lab's going to bill the insurance company $2,000, and that's not unusual at all, as we know, right? Then we will tell the patient that. We'll just be honest with them. And we charge them, if they want to pay cash, we charge them exactly dollar for dollar what we pay for it, because we want them to have the ability to have the best of all worlds without having to get, upcharged or in that situation. So we're very honest about that. We tell people what they need. We tell people what we want to do, and it's a mutual decision on what they can afford. So I would say that everybody can really work with us that have a desire to do better like that, based upon budget, lifestyle, cultures. Everybody's in different spots. And so it even though that wasn't a direct answer, those things need to be understood. Now with genetics, you always keep that separate from insurance, always, because we don't know at this point what that means exactly long term. So we keep their genetics just between us and them. Don't put it in a medical chart because we use it, but I'm not going to put it in the medical chart because I don't want insurance companies to have that. If a person can use insurance in blood labs, we tell them they can, and we're honest with them. If they want to take a chance, they can. But they all need to know the ability to use cash pay, and they all need to know that like HSA and FSA accounts work very well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We do the same type of thing at our clinic. The labs give us I believe it's an 80% discount, on standard labs, and so yeah, I have the same discussion with patients. If they go through us, they can get it for really cheap. It's amazing since I've gotten into this space. Realize, and you take all the middle people out of it, and that's basically what direct primary care is.
Yeah,
You take all the middle people out, it's just a relationship, between the patient and the doctor. But just how cheap you can get things, whether
that's right.
that's an MRI, a blood,
Mhm.
whatever. So yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
like y'all do similar to what we do. Um, so when a patient, so I guess you and your wife see your own individual patients, or is it kind of a collaborative effort? How does that work?
Everything's collaborative.
Okay.
We have a unique system where we share notation systems. Our EMR system is set up like that, where we're seeing live, real time notes, etc. So it's a team effort. That's one of the things that I want people to understand when they're a part of our lives is you're not just getting two eyes, you're getting multiple eyes, multiple brains, multiple thoughts, and then we're going to share those with you. So when we discuss things with people, it's a collaborative effort. Whether someone sees me or sees my wife, it doesn't matter. We same patient community person would see us both, and we have talked, we do talk, and I think people appreciate that. I think they love that. They love the couple idea a lot, and they like the teamwork aspect.
Interesting. Okay, so if a patient comes in, say they see you first, and
Mhm.
then are they gonna continue to follow up with you every couple of weeks, every month, or whatever, or is it possible for them to see you the first time, maybe see your wife the next time?
Yeah, both situations are potentially true.
Okay.
The follow up is determined about how much follow up they need. Some people, you give them their marching orders or give them a plan, and they're like, I'm on it. And then some people, on their hand, need that encouragement. So we have health coaches, of course, on board that will call them and be proactive and see how they're doing. The health coach role is really one that I feel is very important in functional medicine, functional healing, however you define that, because there needs to be this idea of team, this idea of community, this idea of health, this idea of support, accountability, however we want to word that. And so, even though we as physicians might not want to call ourselves coaches, we really are too, because we're cheering them on, encouraging them. So we have health coaches, but there's times where, in the whole thing, and I'll call somebody and my wife will call somebody just to do those calls too, because we want them to know we care about them. And so if someone needs that, we'll structure it in there. And if they don't, it's okay too. We'll structure it in there. Some people prefer a call, some people prefer a text, some people prefer an email, some people prefer just face to face. So we just try to meet them where they are.
Gotcha. Okay. Another thing you have on your services that I notice is prolotherapy for pain relief. Talk about what is prolotherapy?
Well, prolotherapy is a unique osteopathic modality where we're going to use a needle to sort of go into the capsule of a joint, for example, and we're going to use the needle with a little saline to sort of agitate, if you will, the base of those ligatures or the base of those tendons where the growth takes place. So what happens is for like a subluxation for a spine where it gets a little bit out of alignment, we go to the chiropractor and the chiropractor adjusts it. Well, we're hoping that that adjustment will hold because we want those ligatures and those muscles to eventually conform to the more optimal or more normal alignment fixture. And they don't over time. And we're like puzzled by that. The more we do it, of course, the more that works. That's why chiropractic is extremely awesome for that. But you can take prolotherapy and you can sort of inject it right there at those facets around those spinal columns. And you can actually have growth factors initiated and get those things to cinch back up or tighten back up so you can alleviate a lot of surgical perhaps thoughts or considerations with prolotherapy. We've used it with spine, shoulders, knees, elbows, wrists, and I have done it. I had it done on me 3 times. I had a annular tear at L3, L4, and bad deal. No surgery, man. I feel great with one treatment, and I do it prophylactically after this once a year. But it's a great modality. It's often forgot about and underutilized for sure.
Mm. Okay. Um, and also on your website, you have the Shape Reclaimed. Is that just your weight loss management, or what is that?
Yeah, we use it. It is a program that's sort of a kind of a canned program out of a chiropractic doctor who's a friend of ours out of St. Louis, Missouri. And we use it in a different way. We use it as an anti-inflammatory protocol. The foods are listed there for you. We do not put people on diets. We never tell them things like, okay, you only get one of these, two of these, three of these. We give them a large list of foods because I find that adjusting lifestyle is easier when you start talking about abundance versus restriction. And then we do use homeopathy with that. I love that formula that they've created. It is Shape Reclaimed Homeopathy, and it acts and mimics much like the HCG, the human chorionic gonadotrophin does, but we don't restrict calories and make it that 500 calorie diet like that. So it's sort of, that program is mimicked after Dr. Simeon and some of his thoughts and protocols, but we morph it with the company's permission. Of course, we morph it to meet our needs and our desires, and it's been a blessing because they actually have a website support, Facebook, and it's created for someone already. So it's a nice thing for functional medicine people to get into and have a plan of nutrition that makes sense and does work literally for everybody.
Okay, well, very good. So you guys have been doing this for a pretty good while, and I'm sure you've got some amazing stories
Yeah.
of transformations of patients. Give us one or two that just kind of stand out in your mind of just transforming somebody's life.
I'll give you two, one male, one female. Let's start with the female first. She comes into our clinic, and here we are at current time of recording this one in March. This would have been back in November, October, late October, November. So she comes in. She is about 7 months removed from becoming a widow. Tough situation, tough deal. Hemoglobin A1C was running high teens, horrendous hypertension, heart disease, blaring, all the classic signs, had not had an event at all. Multiple medications. We're talking, I think it was more than 5. We've seen it all before. Just at the end of a rope. I mean, just horribly at the end of a rope. The interesting thing about her, Greg, is she was not horrifically overweight like some type 2 diabetic-ish people would be. So she probably had, 40 pounds to lose, but her percent body fat on our, bioimpedance measurements was near 40%. So of course she was sarcopenic obese is what we're talking about, and all those medications. So we put on a program, and as recently as I think I saw her 2 weeks ago, her body fat percentage was 22%. She's off all medications. Her hemoglobin A1C is 5.6. She is a different person. It's crazy. Her clinician who's treating her was absolutely amazed and probably will become a part of our clientele soon. And she's been just a heavy inspiration. Well, that's her. Another guy comes in. He came in October 20th of 2020. He's a well-known minister. So he's on the stage of a mega church, and he is morbidly obese, feeling miserable, sweating profusely, sweating through his, probably $500 shirt, that kind of thing, right? He is on high blood pressure medication. He's told he has an acute kidney disease phenomenon going on, and he is hopeless. 350 pounds, just horrible. comes in begging for help. We put him on a program, and as of about 2 weeks ago, he's down 70 pounds, no medications, feeling great. Blood work, biomarkers are normal. I would consider him still obese. He knows he's still on this pathway. He's still probably got, I would estimate, 40 pounds of fat to lose. But the key thing about him in his 70-pound ish transformation in that little window of time is he has put on 8 pounds of lean body mass. 8 pounds of lean body mass, and he's lost, of course, well over 70 pounds of just excess adipose tissue. Um, couldn't be happier for those two people. That, those are two testimonials that come to mind, but those are common, right? Those are common in the functional medicine space, and that's something that people that are listening to grab a hold of, man. Find your own functional medicine practitioner, get your hope meter up there, and get well, for Pete's sake.
Yeah. 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 That's great. And that probably keeps you going, keeps you going to work and that kind of thing. And, I can say from personal experience and I've, I hadn't been doing this as long, but I've had, a couple of stories like that, but I never had those kind of stories when I was just giving people medication and they come in, they're diabetic and their blood sugar is a little higher. And I did like everybody else. Okay, well, here's another medication. Okay, well, your blood sugar's still high. Here's another medication.
Mm-hmm.
But I never had any of those radical transformations until, I just started changing my mindset, focusing on diet, lifestyle, all the stuff you guys do. So let me ask you this. I'm curious because I saw that your wife is also certified in age management medicine, or A4M, as I am.
Yep.
And so I'm sure there's some overlap between that and functional medicine as far as just the perspective and how you look at things. But what would you say is the difference in kind of the anti-aging medicine versus the functional medicine kind of training and stuff?
Yeah, so we've been certified in, of course, IFM, A4M, AMMG, WorldLink. So we've both been through all those programs, but there's a polar difference in some of them. So, like for example, IFM is not really they're going to talk about functional tests, all their different metrics of the IFM living matrix model and all that. Looking for these things, but they're really not pro hormone. Right? They talk about it, but they're not like pro hormone. They talk about elimination diets and adding it back in. Again, that's so, again, when you find something that's not good for you, why add it back in? That's the point, right? So they're a little bit of a larger, I would consider them everybody's included type thing. Everybody's included. Everybody's going to get better. We're not talking about just a small segment of population being optimal. We're talking about getting people better. And great, awesome. Then there's A4M and AMMG, which are very similar in the sense that they do promote hormones, right? They really do. They promote more the age management or age. They used to call it like an age reversal, but you can't do that, obviously. But so they would be more pro hormone and more hardcore, if you will, on nutrition and things like that. They're more like, man, you got to pull this out. This is just not good. You just get this out of there and work with your people to do that. Then you get into WorldLink, which is really all hormones. Optimizing thyroid and optimizing all of the sex steroid hormones. So I think that people need to really have a well-rounded education in all those areas, and then take the best of all worlds and put them out there, whatever fits your personality. And the thing that I would say, Greg, to any clinician that's going through this is that do it yourself. It's got to be real in your life, man. It's got to be real right here, and you got to look the part. You got to be the part, because it becomes believable at that point if you do it. And a lot of times we jump out in the system and we go over here to do this functional medicine because it's right. We know it's right, but we have to do it on ourselves first. We have to live it, look it, be it, and that in itself will build the belief structure and will build any clientele for anybody, because there's a lot of people out here need help. So, I think with that said, just do all of them as you can. Become a lifetime student and never stop learning.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Well, so anything else, just that I didn't ask that you want to say just about your clinic or about what you guys do?
Well, I think, we're everybody's different. I mean, our personality is such that we are what we are. Our passion, and people need to know that, is we do it. Everything that we tell people to do, we're doing it ourselves and to the max. So that's important. So that's our passion, and our purpose is simply teaching other people to do it. We take no credit for that. It's easy when you're living out your passion and your purpose is tied to that, and just we've been really blessed to have some books and make some movies and have a good media platform, and that's the future, man. It's how we touch lives, and I'm just grateful that you're in our life right now at this point, so we can all share the wealth, share the health, and share the hope.
Yeah, very good. Well, so I always end my podcast by asking my guests to give us one health tip that can make us healthier today,
Mhm.
and it could be anything. What would you say to that?
Believe it or not, I would talk about the idea of stress management. Stop living in fear, limit social media, watch your belief systems. Fear crushes the systems, anxiety crushes the systems. So, whatever you do, take 10 minutes at least during a daytime to get quiet, shut it off, don't talk to anybody, just listen, work on breathing, work on meditation, work on prayer, whatever you call that. Just get quiet and disconnect, because if you stay connected to that fear, I think strongly, is the greatest pandemic that's spreading around the world right now. So, that's the tip. 10 minutes of quiet every day. No dog, no radio, no phone, no people, no husband, no wife, no kids. Get your second hand out on your watch and just watch that thing go around 10 times. And I think you'll have a good day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great advice. Yeah, people have heard it on here before, but chronically high levels of cortisol is a
Yeah,
killer, and you can do everything else right, but if your cortisol level stays high, man, you're not gonna optimize your health. And so that's great advice.
that's
So
right. No, I was just studying on some of that this morning about cortisol and how it just just crushes the system from a systemic standpoint. It's hyper elevated.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, okay. So Dr. Mark Sherwood, and then your wife is Dr. Michele-Neil Sherwood,
Yeah.
and you guys are at the Functional Medicine Institute in Tulsa.
Mhm.
Website fmidr.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can use that website, or an easier one is just Sherwood.tv. Sherwood.tv. That's our personal website. Everything connects through there, and people can, find out about us, because you need to know who you're going to go see and who you're going to check out. So you can stalk us there at Sherwood.tv.
Okay. Okay. Well, very good. Well, we really appreciate your time. And guys, appreciate you listening. And we will talk to you next time. Okay.
Good, man. Thank you. That was awesome.